I guess all those in favor of the consent agenda? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Good. Okay, so at this,
We have a mover and a seconder on that. I'm sorry.
well, I thought I had Murray and Jeff, but maybe I didn't. Did I not, or did I?
I apologize.
Murray's making the motion that he moved it. I kind of, yeah, Jeff, you're not moving. I don't know whether you're froze or not, but you seconded that, right? Okay, and so everybody else is in favor, so that's carried. So that brings us down to item number 5.1, which is the quarter revision on branch A of the Appel drain. We're going to recess from council and adjourn our council meeting at 7:11 for this quarter revision. So I need a mover and seconder for that as well. Sherry and Cheryl, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. So now we need 3 people out of the 5. And Nicholas, you're the chair. I'll just turn it over to you and you can pick out the 3 or the 3 volunteers that you would like.
Yep, that would be great. Welcome to the quarter revision. I'll call this a quarter revision of branch A of the Appel drain to convene here at 7:11. The purpose of the quarter revision under the Drainage Act for the branch A of the Appel drain is to hear and make decisions on appeals to the engineer's report dated November 12th, 2020. Members of the quarter revision are legally required to act fairly and impartially, whether they declare this publicly as an oath or not. Are there any pecuniary interest by members of the quarter revision? Bring them forward at this time. I think Dean had said so. All right, and so then, like Walter said, we'll take 3 members of the quarter revision because the quarter revision can either have 3 or 5 members and not 4. So would you mind bowing out, Cheryl? Would that be all right? All right, great. So myself and Anna Marie. Oh, somebody else already left. So Anna Marie, myself, and Cheryl. I guess you're going to stay. All right. Are the 3 that we're going to do. So we'll go and try to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. So can I have a mover and a seconder that the October 5th meetings of the quarter revision for the Haggerty drain, the Wiles main drain, and Anderson branch improvement 2019, and the Wasman municipal drain improvement 2019 be adopted? Cheryl and Anna Marie, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Carla, could I ask you as clerk to advise us any comments, objections, purpose of the meeting?
Yes, so notice of the meeting, along with a copy of the provisional bylaw 75/2020 was given by mail on December 10th, 2020 to all landowners assessed. The letter advised that any owner may appeal the owner's assessment to the Court of Revision by notice given to the clerk by January 8th, 2021. No correspondence or appeals were received at that time or prior to this Court of Revision. I will also add that no landowners wish to attend the meeting as well.
Thank you. So then, are there any questions from the members of the Court of Revision about the engineer's report? All right, any questions from landowners, late appeals from landowners? Now would be the time for the branch A of the Appel municipal drain. All right, great. Then I'll take a couple people to move and second that the Court of Revision approve the schedule of assessment as outlined in the report prepared by Spruit and Associates Limited dated November 10th, 2020, and the tenders be let. Cheryl, Anna Marie, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And adjournment. So a couple people to adjourn, please. Anna Marie and Cheryl, great. So the Court of Revision is now adjourned at 7:15. Walter, I'll give it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Nicholas.
Welcome.
So we'll get the rest of council back on here again. Okay. Okay, I think we've got everybody back again now. Don't have Councillor Marshall back. But anyways, we'll carry on, and maybe it's just a matter he needs to turn his video on. So the brings us down to reports, and the first report for this evening is the chief building official. So I did see Bob. There's Bob, and he's in my corner. Anyways, I don't know if he's in your corner, but he's in my corner here. So Bob, I'll turn it over to you for your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope my volume is set correctly. For the month of December, we had just over $3 million in construction value, 13 permits, and 9 zoning certificates. The permits are listed. See quite a lot of residential activity on this month's report.
Any questions for Bob on that? Okay.
Councillor Tam has one, Your Worship.
Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Just a question for clarification, Bob. So if anybody comes in for residential or any type of permit now, is it on hold for the 28 days?
The province clarified the regulation 10 OREG 1021. Basically, we're going back to square one with the construction industry back in March. There are a series of protocols and priorities in place. Anything that's essential, food production, food processing, long-term care, educational, school, upper Thames, anything like that is deemed essential and can continue. Certain residential condominium developments are proceeding. Individual residential development, unless it can be proven to be affordable housing, that sort of thing, low-income housing would be able to continue with conditions.
Okay, so just go ahead, Mike. You have another question?
Just so further to that, Bob, just so if anybody applies for a permit that you can't issue, are you still doing the paperwork and just hang on to it till such time, or are they just not being accepted?
We're processing the paperwork. We're issuing the permits that we are able to do it. Other permits we will issue, but there's a condition on it that the owner or the constructor has to confirm the compliance with the regulations before they start construction.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, Bob, and I wasn't ignoring you there. I was trying to find you in my minutes here because I'm so disorganized here tonight because I couldn't get everything to work. But normal houses, single family units and duplexes, they're on hold, but low rental or low, what am I trying to think of? Affordable housing is still a go. Farm buildings would be still a go.
Certain farm buildings, livestock production, food processing for the animals, cut flowers, things like that. If we had greenhouses that were processing vegetables and fruits, that stuff is going. We're holding granaries, drive shed additions, things like that that aren't considered essential.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions for Bob on that? Okay, thanks, Bob.
Second part of my report, Your Worship, is the year-end totals.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
We had 323 permits for the year. That may seem down a little bit, but we've reorganized new housing construction We're combining lateral sewer connections, plumbing, building permits, and all of those into under one permit number instead of 4 permit numbers. So there's a consolidation for each new residential unit in town. That will skew the numbers a little bit for the overall number of permits, but we're still tracking them. One big boost to the construction value this year was the expansion at the Ritz Villa. It was just over $17.5 million. So that construction value does look exceedingly high. It's right on average with our last 3 years. Excuse me. Residential units are consistent as well.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Bob? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
So the next is the clerk's report, and it's with regards to dog tags. So Carla, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, good evening. So the report before you is more for information purposes, just looking to highlight the change to the dog tag system. As mentioned in the staff report, the change to the lifetime dog tag will create efficiencies, reduce waste. As noted in the report, we will be evaluating other opportunities in the future, which should further improve the efficiency for this program. I just want to clarify that sometimes I get confused. The lifetime tag is a lifetime. So the license itself isn't for the lifetime of the animal, if that makes sense. I know what some municipalities do is you'll get one tag and pay X amount of dollars, and that will cover the lifetime of the animal.
So you're still looking at an annual fee.
Still an annual fee, still at our current rate, not looking to increase that in the fees and charges this year. Just given everything, it was just something that would be easy to maintain. But I will note that we are definitely below most of our neighboring municipalities, and just provincially, we are very low in the cost for our dog tags.
Okay. So probably the tags may not last as long as the dog does. So if they lose the tag, or the tag wears out from jingle jangling or what have you,
Yep.
They just come in and you just issue another tag, same number, or you would just give them another number and that would carry on?
Usually within the fees and charges, there'd be, and I believe in our current one, there's just a replacement dog tag fee, and I believe it's $2. So then you'd get that one replaced. We'd go into the system and just replace that number.
Okay, all right. Okay, Cheryl.
Just a question. Would the owners be allowed to take that tag number and put it on no noise tags and put them on the collars?
Would on noise tags?
You know how there's tags that you can, ID tags that can be, and would the owners be allowed to put those ID tags, West Perth tag number, on those tags on the collar instead of having the jingle jangle noise?
Yeah, no, for sure. So there's two parts. The first part is that number itself. So we have our animal control services are through Stratford Perth Humane Society. So in the event they found your dog, they seen that number and it looked a little bit off. They might actually not even recognize that. It doesn't look like our regular tag. They would still be able to run that number and locate the owner. So there wouldn't be anything illegal, I guess, to say that. So no, yeah, they could use that. One of the options that some municipalities have went to is called DocuPet, and that tag system itself, they have more fun, unique, cute dog tags, kind of like what you're saying, where you want it to look like a certain way and have your own phone number as well on it. So that's something that we would be reviewing potentially in 2021.
Any other questions? Mike?
Would it make sense to have lifetime ones as an option, Carla? Like if you figured out if a 5-year one at $100 covered your costs or whatever, for example, that would be an option for people.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because a few municipalities trialed that and went through that process, and now they're reverting back because they saw both a reduction in revenue and in compliance. It worked backwards to the effect. Other alternatives to create more compliance is instead of it's really discouraging for a pet. I know I have many dogs, and to have one flat rate versus 15 for your first dog, 20 for your second dog, third, your compliance goes down because once you get to your third dog, you might not want to be putting out the $30.
Mhm.
That's just one thing that they've identified, but the actual lifetime one, municipalities are going backwards on that. With that DocuPet, I apologize, 'cause I'm not prepared to report on that program. What I really like is they do the 300, it's an annual tag, but it's 365 days. So it's by individual dog, not by a calendar year. So if you got your dog today, then you'd be renewing 365 days from today. So for now, it's difficult because if in November, if somebody purchases a dog and is complying with the bylaw and they come in, they're really paying that dog tag just until the end of that year. And then they'll be getting an invoice for another $15, $20 in January. So, but yeah, the law, I definitely, when we review the options, that the lifetime will be put forward for council consideration, just so they have and make an informed choice. But it has just the investigation that I've done, municipalities are backing away from that as a revenue and compliance purposes.
Okay, anybody else? All right. So no action is needed at this time. You don't need a resolution, do you, Carla?
No, because there was no cost, there was no change. We didn't bring it to council to kind of look at options. This was just a temporary measure that at minimum, we were saving a lot of staff time through this process.
Right, okay. No,
But they
that's
will,
good.
each person will now, just in case anyone asks, or I'm sure most of you actually do have pets and do receive the invoice yourselves in the mail. We will be sending out a letter explaining the perpetual tags.
Okay, very good. All right, thanks a lot. Okay, moving on then. Next item then is correspondence. And we do have a letter from the Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce with regards to inquiring about a grant. I know Jeff has been dealing with this one. I'm not sure if there's anything further to explain. Jeff, you're on here, so I'll let you maybe say a few words about it, but I'm assuming we just refer it to budget and it would be dealt with at a future date.
Sure, there's a couple of choices here. So we transferred the regular base grant that Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce obtains on a yearly basis to them in December. And that check was transferred and that money was provided. That's $3,500 per year, you may recall. And in working with the chamber and the president, Robert Benaways, he was asking questions about what kinds of options they would have, because they were paying hydro and they were paying heat and they paid snow removal and a number of activities, and they had no revenue stream. So as a municipality, and that was in addition to the grant. So as a municipality, he was asking what we could do about that. So we took a look for Broadhaven Chambers and went through the federal and provincial programs. And the reason that they are not eligible for a lot of the COVID relief programming is because, number one, they don't have any permanent staff or any staff that they pay. It's all volunteer time. So they can't get the rebates for salary and wages. And then secondly, they aren't eligible for the heat and hydro rebates because their facility is owned by the municipality, and municipally owned facilities that are operated by someone else are explicitly excluded. So I believe the remedy for this, in my opinion, is that Broadhaven Chamber is in a unique position in our municipality, and I'm aware of a similar situation in Perth South where the community organization didn't have an opportunity to get access to grants, but the appropriate remedy for them is to provide them with support, not a grant, but support through the federal provincial COVID relief fund, which we've received. And I'd be prepared to recommend that if council feels that that's the remedy they'd like to pursue, we can, I would say to you that we could do that at any time. I think if you'd like to have a balance of how much we're going to have to carry over in that fund, we do not have it at this time because the 2020 year end is not complete, and there's a number of projects that have to be invoiced to that account yet. But I can say that we're very comfortable that the amount of money we have in that fund will very adequately cover our needs for 2020, and we will carry forward the surplus to 2021 and feel that we will have sufficient surplus to cover operating losses from the current situation that we're in even right now in 2021. So I don't have the exact number of the fund, but I would suggest to you that your choices are, we could proceed to make a payment to them out of that fund now, or if you'd like to refer it to budget and have a better idea of the status of the fund, I think we can do it at budget. But I am going to say to you, either way, I think that is the appropriate use of that fund.
Okay. There'd also be a few other organizations that might be affected, would there not, Jeff?
Well, there are, obviously there's organizations across the whole municipality that are affected, but they're not all affected in the same way. So this is the one situation where the municipality owns the facility, the building, and there are significant heat, hydro, and maintenance costs that they're not able to get funding support for because they're excluded, because they're municipally owned. So Dublin, for example, is the Dublin, we do all the hall rentals for them and we own the hall, but we also receive the revenue. So it's a slightly different arrangement. And then ballparks, I think the only other thing that could be even close would be Fullerton Ball and the ballpark in Carmody. And in both of those cases, we have reached out to them to discuss if they're interested, like what their status is. They presumably don't have the expenses, but we will check with them to see if they are requiring any support.
Okay. I think we maybe, we're having a budget meeting in the near future. So I think until we get a handle on the numbers, what we have in the COVID fund, it would be wise probably to get a handle on that and then decide where we're going on that. I don't have a problem. I think their request is probably realistic. The insurance one, I had a comment, I guess, or a question on that. The 2,600, because we have the insurance on the building, Jeff,
Yes.
right?
So we insure the asset, and then the Broadhaven Chamber of Commerce insures their volunteers, and they provide liability. So our agreement with them requires them to provide us with a certificate of liability insurance on an annual basis.
Okay. Okay, I just thought that maybe isn't high. I don't know. I just thought it seemed a fairly high number, but
Yeah.
no, that's fine.
I would mention that council can expect that the agreement with Broadhaven has expired. The current agreement has expired. The project that we need to get on to next with Broadhaven is a renewal of that agreement. I would suggest that through the process of renewing that agreement, we build the annual contribution. So what's currently in grants, we build that into the actual agreement with some cost of living measures, so that it probably, it annually goes up a certain amount to keep it relevant or keep it current. They have indicated that they would perhaps like to ask for slightly more annual support for their operations. And I think you can see by their profit and loss sheet that they have significant expenses, and none the least of which is they're required to maintain snow for access to our water tank for rural firefighting. So I would say to you that I believe it's a fair request that they're making, and that request should be baked into agreement and not be an annual grant request. So we will cover that through the renewal of the agreement with a separate report for council's consideration. And I just do want to mention that on the topic of grants, we did do work at the beginning of 2020 on revising that grant structure, and we still will be bringing that to council. I'll have to check in with the treasurer and the clerk on what the timing of that will be, but we do intend to revise that, and we want to look at the time of year that we pay the grants and some of those factors.
Okay, if Councillor Marshall.
Thank you. I just wondering if there's any sense of urgency and or need for this money before maybe a budget gets through, or they are right to go till we work through our budget process.
I don't have the answer to that, and I could check in, and if they would like consideration at the February 1st council meeting, we could bring that back. So I can certainly check in with them about their timing. I'm not sure if one of the ward councillors has an update or any input on that. I would mention to you that the similar example that's out there is the case of the Downey Optimists in St. Paul's, and they're an almost identical example, and they end up needing some support from the municipality in the same way.
And we can check with them, and certainly worst case scenario is that we could give them a partial payment at the first of the year, and then follow up when we're done. There's no reason why that couldn't happen either. Anybody else? Dean?
My understanding is that funds would be needed for 2021 sooner rather than later. So I think it would behoove us to move expeditiously in the consideration of this request. It is one of our more noted and long-standing volunteer groups in the community, so I think we need to act quickly on this request rather than later.
We always do, Dean. You know that. Okay, let's if there's nothing further, we'll carry on, and keep that in mind that maybe Jeff can talk to Robert, and if we have to do something, we can do it, at our first meeting in February or whatever, and tide them over. But yeah, they do have some costs that they're going to incur. I know that. Anything else? If not, we'll keep moving here. Okay. Next item then is just my December report there, and I don't know if there's any questions on anything there. It's fairly straightforward. Most of it is Zoom meetings and conference calls. As a matter of fact, it's all that. The next one then is the Seaforth Area Fire Board met in December, and the minutes are there. There's really not a lot other than they have purchased a new to them aerial platform truck to take the place of their previous one, and this one comes from Owen Sound. And I'm just looking here, and I don't think it says it in the report here. I believe there was 12,000. And I think it would be miles likely. I don't think it would be kilometers. It would be miles on this truck. And they get their truck when Owen Sound gets their new one, and it's being made at this time. So they seemed happy with this purchase. The other truck was, I believe, 40 or 45 years old. Chief Hunter's on the line. Maybe he knows how old the other one was. So they think they've this is an improvement for them to pick up a 95. And the other truck, they only used it, I believe, in for town fires. It had to be hooked up to a fire hydrant. It was no good for going to an accident or anything because it didn't carry any water. This one here apparently does have some water on it, so they're anticipating they'll get a bit more use out of it. But they do a lot, or I shouldn't say a lot, but they use it a lot for high angle rescue and a few things like that. And they've been to other municipalities. I'm not sure in Perth County, but certainly in Huron County. So other than that, I think that's about it. Any questions from anybody? Mike?
So the 25 years that we hear of the life expectancy of the trucks, is that just a good guideline, or can you comment on that, Bill? How they're putting one in service that's 26 years old? Chief Hunter?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay. The 25 years is in the NFPA standard that we follow for fire apparatus. So they recommend that trucks at 25 years are not continued in fire service.
Does that answer your question, Mike?
Somewhat. Okay. This is a good guideline. I guess that's the answer.
NFPA standards can be used by the Ministry of Labor in the event that something happens. They're a recognized standard throughout North America and really around the world. So things like our bunker gear, ladders, trucks, hose, everything's built and tested to the NFPA. So it's a solid standard to follow, which is what we do in West Perth.
Mike?
I guess to me, like when we talk, speak of a section tanker and stuff like that, if there's departments around that had like one tanker, like primary tanker, whatever you want to call it, if they had it in service for 15 years and then there's an opportunity for somebody to take it as a backup for the next 10 years, I think that'd be an ideal situation for, somebody to always have the most up-to-date state-of-the-art one, and then the other municipalities that require a backup one. I just think that around here, there's got to be a way with all the equipment that we could have some system that works with everybody to keep up to their needs.
And I guess this certainly isn't their main truck by any means. They have a pumper that is their main truck, and this is kind of a backup. It's more, like I said, it's more for aerial work as much as anything. So that's where they're at, and that's the route that they've decided to go. So if there's nothing else, we'll move on to the next item, and that is the Mitchell BIA board. There's actually a couple sets of minutes there, November 4th and then November the 9th as well. So Sherry, I'll let you talk to that.
Nothing really to add. They're pretty self-sufficient or self-explanatory. We are going to go ahead with a virtual concert sponsored by the BIA. Our board and our clerk are both working, our BIA coordinator, are working on that. And so that's going to be on the Sunday night of Family Day weekend. So I just have to watch for a bit more information coming on that. So that's a little project we're working on. That's about it. Businesses are surviving.
Okay, any questions for Sherry on that? Okay. I think that's it for council reports. So we'll move on, and brings us down to bylaws. And we do have five bylaws. Bylaw 01 is a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures, and we do that. That's our usual first bylaw of the new year. Bylaw 2 is to provide for interim tax levies for the year for 2021. And bylaw 3 is a bylaw to appoint the Committee of Adjustment for the Municipality of West Perth. Bylaw number 4 is authorize the execution of a mutual aid agreement between the corporation of the County of Perth and North Perth, Perth East, Perth South, and Town of St. Mary's. And bylaw number 5 is appoint an interim treasurer. And yeah, we'll deal with this, and then I think our interim treasurer is online here, and I'll get Jeff maybe to introduce her. So any questions on the bylaws? Okay, so we need a mover and a seconder, and I can read the recommendation that Council of the Municipality of West Perth gives first, second, and third and final reading to bylaw 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the mayor and clerk are hereby directed to sign and affix the seal. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, seconder. Don't everybody go at once. Anna Marie, thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can introduce Terry, I guess.
Sure, thank you very much. As you all be aware, it's not a very ideal time of year to
There she is.
to be without a treasurer. So we managed to locate Terry Rao, who is was the treasurer in the past, has a number of years of experience as finance manager and treasurer in most recently Central Huron, and before that Blue Water. Terry is quite consistent with our normal practice of getting statutory positions out of Huron County. Seems to be where we always find our people that we appoint to statutory positions. And I just want to point out that Terry has started with us to allow some overlap between Terry and Angela. Angela is finished this at the end of this week. We've got Terry appointed as interim treasurer effective tomorrow, so that we have the continuity to get us through. And if there's any questions for Terry, or you'll be seeing lots of Terry as we move through the budget process.
Any questions? This is where I usually get the new person and I throw them under the bus, but Jeff's already given all the information. Is there anything else you want to add, Terry?
No, just it's great meeting you all. I know strange times, isn't it? But it's great to see all your faces now, so that's wonderful. I'm there to help support, and if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. It's a bit of a really steep learning curve right now, so I will just do my best and help you during my short time here with the Municipality of West Perth.
Thank you, Terry. Doug, you had a question?
Terry, I'll be in tomorrow looking for $30 check for my BAA bucks. It's Wednesday.
No.
So if you want to jump in and start writing them.
I've seen those floating around. I haven't done a whole lot with those yet.
Okay.
I think we have to be fair and give Terry a bit of time to get up to date here. There's a lot of stuff on the go here, and you know, I have no doubt that she'll be able to grasp it, but we do have to give her a little bit of time.
I just want to jump in and remind
Deputy Mayor that he should read his newsletters from the BIA that did instruct him to be patient with our new treasurer, and that the BIA redactions might be a little slower than we have come to expect. So I'm just going to direct Deputy I to go back to his email from BIA and read it.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Well, if there's no other questions, thank you, Terry, and
nice to meet you all.
We look forward to working with you in the future here.
And I too. Thank you.
All right. The announcements there. I think I'll just draw attention to the first one. The January 20th budget meeting has been postponed so that we can just get a few things in order here and get Terry up to speed. And I don't know if there's anything else Carla or Jeff want to add about upcoming meetings or anything. The economic development is on Wednesday night at 7. Doug, you can talk to that if you want.
Yeah, the economic development presentation, we usually have the breakfast in November or early December, and they've sent out, I assume everybody has the brochure or has seen the brochure. It's a beautiful brochure that was put out by Jeff, and if Jeff's there, Kristen, and then Sarah Franklin from okay, and Sarah Franklin and a couple from the county. If you need one, I have an extra 10 because everybody wouldn't have got one here, would they, on council, Jeff?
So they've been sent out by email. We didn't mail them to councillors. They've been sent by email. If any councillor would like a few in the mail, we can send them, and we'll be promoting that. If anyone would like a mailed copy, if you have anyone in the community who would like us to mail a copy to, let us know. We have extra ones to mail out.
I think it'll be a good, probably an hour total, Jeff.
Yeah, I anticipate it'll be 3 presentations, roughly 10 minutes each, and then a question and answer session. So about a 7 till 8 p.m. meeting tops.
And you have to register, call Kristen, right? It's a Zoom meeting.
It's a Zoom.
So you have to call Kristen to get the Zoom contact in, unless it's sent to all councillors automatically.
No, we'll ask for registration so we have a sense of how many we're going to have, but we would certainly encourage councillors, if you're interested in you've seen the newsletter, there's an opportunity for people to ask questions about specific projects and any other questions they have, and councillors may be interested in hearing that. And I believe we're up to about 15 or 16 registrations for the Wednesday night meeting.
Okay, any other questions? The next, well, we meet on February 1st for our first meeting in February, and then the 3rd will be our next budget, or will be not our next, our first budget meeting. So, yeah. Okay, moving on then. Any notices of motion for anything? All right. Under other business, and I mentioned I was going to have Jeff just maybe update us a bit about where we're at with the McKillop pit, or I call it the McKillop pit. I guess West Perth actually owns it, but it's in McKillop. So Jeff, do you want to give us, you don't need to go into a lot of detail.
No,
I think it's more of a refresher thing.
Sure. So I'll just remind council that we did have a discussion about this at our June, I think it might have been even the June 1st or the first meeting in June of 2020, where we looked at options. The direction I received from council, we did this in open session, and the direction I received from council was to look at options of assessing how much gravel still remained in the floor of that pit. The surface information would indicate that there's quite a bit of gravel there, but a few test pits in the floor and also in the boundary between that pit and the pit that's immediately to the east would be worthwhile to determine whether or not we want to explore a shared royalty agreement with the neighboring operator. And on the basis of that, we can make a decision about whether or not we'd like to work that aggregate out with a royalty agreement, or whether we want to simply take the test results, bind them into a report, and sell the property with the test results. And I would come back to council. I attempted a few times to connect with the operator of the pit to the east, and I just can't remember the name of that pit. It's escaped me. But the Hully pit. The operator of that pit is Lavis. I attempted to connect with them a couple of times, and we weren't able to nail down a date where we could go out there and decide on what kind of borehole sampling would be, where the logical places would be, and whether or not they want to share and do some borehole sampling on their side. So that is an unfinished task from 2020. I intend to follow up again and hope to get those test pits. I'd like to have the data before I make a recommendation to council to sell, but if you wish to, if you want to move ahead and sell sooner, we could revisit that. But right now I intend to get the test data.
Okay, any further questions for Jeff on that? Okay. It's just a good refresher for where we're at on that one. And once we do the boreholes and that, we have a better idea what's there, and we can decide whether we want to enter into an agreement or whether we just want to sell the whole thing. So we'll look forward to that coming in the near future. So, oh, Doug, sorry.
Just, I have when I talked to Carla about something, she said I could come in second, which is normal in new business. So if you're done with that.
Yeah, you can talk about it, and I think the answer to yours is it's up this year.
So
you better ask the question because nobody else knows what you're talking about.
For the rest is, I've been on council for 10 years now, and we have 2 25-acre parcels of land at the Logan landfill, and we've never rented them out. The farmers have been able to keep them. So I thought after 10 years, it was time that we should tender them out or find the paperwork that gave those people the free use for 10 years. As a municipality, we're not in the business of giving stuff to one person and not the other. Walter would be the only person on council before 10 years ago to know what transpired. And it's 50 acres, I believe. I don't know if there's any land at, oh, sorry, Mike. Mike was too, he's waving. If there's any land at the actual landfill, or if it's to the north and the west of the property. So
I believe it's mostly to the west. And it was negotiated when we had to acquire that property, and we had to acquire that property because of the Ministry of Environment at that time issued that we had to have control of it. So it was all part and parcel of negotiating the purchase of that, and it was a 10-year, I believe, a 10-year agreement, which so that just puts us now that yeah, we need to look at it. And Jeff he has it on his list that I think he's going to look at it in February, and we'll if it's the way I think it is, then we'll probably we'll be tendering it out.
I understand.
Jeff?
Yes, I understand that we negotiated the use of the property for 10 years with the seller. And I have written in my book for February of 2021 to go back and find the agreement, and we'll be tendering that property. We'll be tendering it now that we get control of it back.
Good. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay. We do have a closed session, and then I'm anticipating it might take a little while. I guess, and I'm maybe going to put my foot in my mouth here, but I just would tell all of council that while we're waiting to proceed into our budget, and I realize some other municipalities are a little further on than we are, I would ask that you just be patient. You've met Terry tonight, and we got to give her a little bit of time to get a handle on things. So when you're requesting information, it takes some time to get that information, and we're going to get that information for budget anyways. So I'm just trying to encourage everybody to be patient and give them time to get ready for a budget presentation. And then if it isn't what you see isn't there, you have questions, by all means, go right ahead and ask them. But we're short on staff right now, and we've got to get a few people up to speed here. So I would just ask that you try and be patient, and we'll go from there. So I have nothing further. So a recommendation that I have here is that the Municipality of West Perth proceeds to closed session at 7:59 for the purpose of addressing a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board regarding a planning service agreement, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees regarding a planning service agreement, and employee negotiations of labor relations regarding treasurer recruitment and municipal staff. Do I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Harold and Councillor Trankowski. All those in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. So we will go into closed session now. And I believe, okay. I haven't got anything further at this time. So basically, confirmatory bylaw, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council and the Corporation of West Perth for our meeting dated January the 18th. And mover and seconder for that. Councillor Bell and Councillor Harold. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And lastly, but not least, a motion to adjourn, and we adjourn at 9:14. So I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rose, and don't everybody jump at once. Councillor Murray. All those in favor?